Bridge life, bridge life. Bridge, life. In a land far away, a long time ago, in a land far away. I don't know what happened because I've been under this bridge all day. Bridge life, smidge life. I can't avoid damn pants or flesh-eating ants. Alrighty then. I hope I did things right and pushed the right buttons and that there are human beings. Looks like my chat's a little odd here. What's going on there? Let's see it. Let's see it. Let's see it. There it is. Let's see it. Greetings, everybody. Hey, guys. Howdy doody. I had to do like a pop out there. I don't know why. Bridge life. Bridge life. Hi, guys. Just waiting for everybody to show up just a second. Cracking a beer here. It's Friday night. Hope everybody can hear me. Check, check, check with the double check. Hey, I'm down here. Hey, I'm down here. Help. Yeah. Well, don't get all depressed now. Come on now. Bridge life, bridge life. I can't avoid damn pants or flesh-eating ants. Anyway, hi, everybody. Let's just push some buttons real quick here. I kind of like it. I kind of like this like classroom level brightness. This is pretty nice right here. I mean, this feels just like awake, aware. It's like I've had frosted mini wheats for breakfast and I'm ready to learn. Okay, everybody. Do you like cider? Sure. Greetings, programs. Welcome to Friday Night Show. Buddy Ingrid Bernal here. Hanker Fernale, Drunks and Dragons Rune Hammer here on YouTube. We're chilling out. And just kind of going to adjust this down here just a little bit so I can lean back and not fall out of the frame there. See, look. Bridge life, bridge life. Anyway, welcome back, everybody. It's Friday. Glad everybody could tune in. Welcome. Before we jump into this tonight, just a real quick word, and everybody just take a solemn moment. There's been some gnarly events in this world the last few days. Hell, the last 2 years for that matter. But of course, everybody reach out some positive vibes to fellow humans across the earth. There's always something wild happening on the earth and a lot of, people suffering because of it. So we don't need to get into it because we're here to just talk about our little thing and maybe take a break from it. But let's be aware from it. Send out some good vibes. So I hope everybody copes with terrible events as best they can. And we just kind of find a way forward to survive and keep on striving for a better world. Okay, so hang on tight if you're out there going through some doo-doo, and times will be better in the future. All right, so hi everybody, it's Friday night. That means once again it's time for a live stream here where I update you guys on all the comings and goings and silliness and wacky antics of my old school Essentials game, which just finished its 5th session on Monday night. So that's cool. We had all kinds of wacky, unexpected chaos, not just in the game, but in the real world surrounding the game. So there's some comedy and all that. And what else? Oh yeah. And then also tonight we're going to get into the deep think part. So that's kind of what I've been trying to do with the show here is, keep you guys updated on my personal game and what I'm doing. And then also revelations that have been, coming to me as I'm doing my weekly journaling and thinking about this wacky hobby of ours, and also being inundated by the input, the questions, and the stories and stuff from people all over the world that are also doing the hobby. Can you show that? These are just my I'm working on things. These are my chorveralls. These are chorveralls. If you got a Coors Light t-shirt and chorveralls, that means you are ready to do some chores, meaning barely any. maybe walk the dog, and then you have a beer and be like, whew, I'm tired. Too many chores. Mm. Okay. So, welcome everyone. Let's get past that whole intro thing and let's kick down with some straight up bone crunching, good old fashioned, traditional, due to the hum D&D. Thank you, Shaker. Appreciate that. Remember, your tips on YouTube here go straight into Phil Abundance, my local food bank. I'm just going to keep doing that. It seemed like more crucial to do it last year when everything was really going to hell in a handbasket, but why not just keep going? So right now we are generating about $110 a month in tips that go into the food bank. So that's totally awesome. That's 200 meals for families out there that you can use a hand. So that's always great. Okay, so anyways, help out people in your community. Help them get some grub if they're having a hard time, and somehow it's all just gonna work out. We're gonna be cool in the end. All right. So first of all, what happened? Thanks, Hunter. What happened with my Steichen campaign? All right. So my OSE campaign, The Whispers in Blackmoor, is on just finished its 5th session. Basically the campaign is inspired by Dave Arneson's Blackmoor world from the late 70s, and we kind of took that as a sketch to get started. We took it as a flavor cue to get started. We took some of the fundamental facts of Blackmoor and brought them in as truths in our world. But I can't say that we're sort of following the idea of a Blackmoor campaign. To me, that's in some ways like anathema to what D&D is. I don't really want to follow what someone else did, but we did want to catch some of the kind of zany flavor elements that Arneson put into his game back then. And so those were put into the preparation of the campaign, but most of that's just up in my brain. The best part about session 5 is that a lot of those truths got to sort of come out finally. And they came out in forms that were kind of surprising to me as far as the technique used to deliver those truths. And then that's a little bit what I wanted to talk about tonight. So exactly what happened. Let's just kick that off first right away. So we gathered for session 5 in our tavern where we play, and we had a little bit of like a scheduling snafu. So we all sat down, everybody got out their stuff. We got our first round of beers. We had our whole table. We set up like a custom table that we kind of arranged in the room. We're all just like, oh man, this is going to be a big one. Like there's a lot of open ends and loose strings tonight. We're all sitting there. And then there was a little bit of an oversight on somebody didn't call somebody, and it's just whatever, no big deal. But someone else had the floor that night and they were like just showing up. So we're like, So we checked, and sure enough, we had not got our text in. So they were the rightful takers of the game floor. So we had to gather up all our stuff real quick and just like not lose any fun momentum, and go over to one of our friends' house, which is like 3 blocks walk away, to do the session. So we did that. So our first 2 salvo go out, and they're going to go set up the picnic table in the backyard and get a light out in the backyard and get set up. Our job is to close up our tab and get some beer to bring to the location. So there's 3 of us that stay, 2 that go ahead. But what happened, we actually got a little 10-minute lag there, 15-minute lag, where the 3 of us who were carrying the beer had a little bit of a cabal to talk. And to me, this is a reinforcer of just like how playing in person is really so much different. Is that was part of our game. Is that little moment when our group kind of split up to logistically move to the next spot. It wound up us sort of sitting there waiting for the tab to come through, and we had a food order that we had to grab. And so we just naturally kept talking about D&D, and that was part of the game. Like anytime you're talking about getting your character build figured out, or choosing this spell, or realizing you had a piece of equipment that we were rolling the wrong damage for, or whatever, you forgot to tally this piece of experience, or you were thinking about maybe you taking your character this direction, or you were curious about this NPC or this item that we overlooked. What was that? That's all playing D&D to me. I mean, it isn't like some shocking moment of cinematic revelation and action-packed adventure and combat. It's housekeeping, right? But the housekeeping of D&D to me really is part of it. So that kind of was our little jam. We grabbed our stuff. We cruised over to the homie's crib. we came into the crib and it was hilarious. We got in this, backyards in Philly are not that large. So there's like a rope, there's like a fishing boat leaned up against the house. And we're at the picnic table there with like a flood lamp. And we got our cold beers and our meatball sandwiches and we're ready to go. And I got to give full props to this crew. They call themselves the Dirty Jobs crew. Is like we lost no momentum. Zero momentum was lost with this crew. So what my one homie, like his girlfriend got him a brand new set of dice. They're called OSP dice, AUSP dice. They're pretty wild. They're like gemstone looking dice that are like handcrafted, multifaceted plastic crazy things. And I had seen them online, but in person, damn, they were fly. They were really, really cool. So that kind of put a spin on things. We're like, oh yeah, this is going to be hot. So we get into the session. Now, if you guys remember last session, they had defeated the snow troll and they had basically a big open-ended RP session coming where they had freed this whole mine of dwarves and they were about to conclude their storyline with their main NPC, Lady Wallcrest. And if you guys saw my last stream, I was talking about, as a dungeon master, trying to have the courage to let that quest line end. Now, normally in my DM style, I like kick the epic up another notch with every chapter. Like this thing is revealed to be a bigger part of this, and that's a bigger part of this, and then this gets worse, and then that escalates, and this is on fire. And that's kind of how I do my stuff. I keep the pressure on constantly. But I just have been dreaming of wanting to expand my DM muscles. So I wanted to completely conclude the Lady Wallcrest storyline and let her be resolved. Like, thanks, we did it. I don't do that in my games, and I thought it would feel cool for the players. It totally was great. She kind of met her target, which was to reestablish her treaty and her agreement with the dwarves to exchange these gems that they've been mining for these hops that are being farmed in Newgate, like the best hops in the world, because what do dwarves want more than the best hops in the world? And in the process of trading these gems, they stumbled upon these larger jewels, which are very strange and round and smooth. And since those have been discovered, bad things have begun to happen. So monsters have begun to appear in more frequency and sort of magic is becoming fickle. Classic stuff, right? So on the one hand, my group just wants to get Lady Wallcrest to her destination and get the gold. And they do that. They're done with her. She kind of has a little bit of a romance loose end with our fighter, because he has very high charisma and also rolled a nat 20 like twice interacting with her as far as charisma. She's like, basically, we're done talking until you come back with a ring, which was super satisfying, I think, for me and the players. But then also, let's get into like these dwarves. And that's what my players really wanted to do. And they had all kinds of different ideas. At one point, there was even a frightening moment that they were going to help the dwarves like work on a deep tunnel where a couple of dwarves had not returned for a few days, and to go try to, bolster it and explore it. And I thought, man, if they go down there, they're going to be down there for weeks. Like that's the entrance to the Underdark and stuff. I don't even know what's down there. I don't have that planned. But if you go and help mining dwarves, you're heading for the Underdark, yo. Like they fell through a floor somewhere and they're like, it's called OSP dice, JP. AUSP dice. Anyway, so they wanted to talk to these dwarves. And in the process of doing so, they're talking to them in different tactical ways. They basically come to two big realizations, three of them, really. One, that these dwarves imprisoned this high elf that my players know about up on the snowy plains, who's hanging in a cage like Mad Mardigan. The dwarves did that. They hate that guy. That guy tried to rob them, and they've got him out there rotting. Number two, the discovery of blood rubies. Blood rubies are something that I've invented in my game just for fun. It's basically 4 grades of dice. That's a cool little red dice. Mono makes made me an amazing custom set of dice. So I'm kind of handing them out one at a time. And a blood ruby is basically you spend a couple of hit points to take a die and add it onto any roll, and then the blood ruby like dissolves. So it's just a nice little savable resource for a player. So they learn about blood rubies, which are going to be an ongoing thing I can use to kind of bolster them here and there. And then more importantly, far more importantly, our wizard takes like 3 days of game time to study these new unknown jewels that are being discovered. Now, this is, of course, a MacGuffin of the Dave Arneson Blackmore world. These are these sort of gems of Coot. And so if you guys know about Blackmore, there's a kind of a wacky supreme bad guy in Blackmore called the Egg of Coot. And it's a very mysterious entity, which seems to be some kind of bio multimorph, which uses telepathy and also can create jewels and influence lesser creatures with some kind of weird, it's almost like a Godzilla level creature of some kind that's never fully revealed. Of course, it's fascinating. The name is hilarious. And so in our world, we have these gems of Coot. And so not only does the wizard figure out that's what these are, that they're basically a hook into Dave Arneson's larger story world, but also he like makes this series of lenses. You know how D&D is. And he just gets way, way down in there and discovers that each gem has like a tiny little like sea monkey inside of it. So these are actually like insanely old, durable eggs of some sort. And so what I'm trying to do is like give these kind of hints and also morph it into my own world. Like, what is an egg of Coot? An egg is actually a gem of Coot, so on and so forth. So, whoa, they discover this. They don't know what it means because this storyline has concluded. And basically, like, my dwarf Hogan, who is a brother of the tavern keeper down in Bramswald named Dogan, they don't know anything more about them. They just discovered them and they know that they kind of have an evil essence to them. But they do know that similar gems were starting to be discovered in other places before this began. So it's just kind of like, well, you know, I'm not sure. And then the players are like, well, now what do we do? And that was a really magical moment. So at that moment when they said, now what do we do? I felt this kind of, the rhythm felt right. They had achieved a lot. They are all now level 2. So it took, for the statisticians out there among you, it took them 5 sessions playing OSE pretty close to the book to reach level 2 as a group. So some of them reached level 2 a little bit sooner. Now they're all level 2. Their reward as players for reaching level 2 is I gave them their own custom painted miniatures. My man Jorge up at Atris Miniatures did the paint job. We selected some classic old Reaper minis, some old pewter ones. He did the paint for me and got them delivered, and I kind of gift wrapped each one. And so now my players have miniatures. And so right away, this is exciting, but also helps put my players into using a visual in front of them to play. We've just been playing with dice and coins, stuff like this. And so now they have sort of a visual representation. Our only real terrain that we're using is a roll box. That's our entire game terrain, is a roll box. And I use little skull dice as bad guys and sometimes other little objects as little obstacles. But really that's all it is. That's all it is. So I revealed the miniatures to them, which matched the art I had done for them. And that was kind of like, whoa, you know, hey, let's have a beer. Hooray, Dirty Jobs crew. Eat, finish off the meatball sandwich and let's get ready for the second half of the session. Now, already we've been playing like 2 hours. So they basically agree that they're going to go up to the crossroads. And so as a favor to Hogan, because these dwarves have been really good to them, they're going to, check on this prisoner. So they go up to the prisoner, they start talking to the prisoner, and the prisoner reveals a lot about possible directions they could go in the future. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. So this prisoner is a real jerkwad too. He really enjoys like insulting my player characters. And by hook and by crook, they basically, well, yeah, my halfling tries to sort of reach in and snatch something because this prisoner has all this fine gear and like masterwork gear. And of course, the skeletal hand grips down. The ring of true sight reveals he's not a prisoner at all. It's just a skeleton in a cage. The whole thing was some kind of bizarre trap set by whoever this character is that's imprisoned here. He must have used magic to escape and replaced it with or something. Maybe he tricked the dwarves, unknown. But when this happens, they see he has one of these eggs of Coot, the gems on his necklace. The skeleton is like, and a small group of skeletons, I think it was like 11 skeletons, kind of come up out of the ground nearby and attack my players. We have a huge skeleton battle. The skeleton battle goes all the way until after dark. So it's dark and we're in the backyard at the picnic table. The skeletons are finally defeated. And then we have kind of a moment of like, we could stop right here. It's about maybe 10:30. So we've been playing 4 hours, but it's like one of my players who's kind of hilarious with this. He's just like, he's brand new. It's the first time he's ever played D&D. And it like dawns on him. He has this amazing revelation where he's like, it's kind of like D&D never ends. He's a Kiwi. So he always says ends. It never ends. It's just like a way to hang out. And we're like, yeah, man, that's what it's all about, hanging out. So it's like, well, let's play some more then. Okay, great. So the skeletons have been defeated. They've realized this is an illusion. There was a beautiful moment when my elf, who's really like trying to be this like dark badass killer, but he just can't help the fact he's a total support character. He's always helping other characters. And so when my halfling gets his hand stuck in there and there's all this necrotic energy going up the arms, and there's skeletons closing in, there was a moment when this halfling is facing 3 undefendable skeleton attacks. This would have been certain death. And so my elf, who's up on top of this hanging cage, right? He's up here, reaches down and grabs Halfling's other arm, rolls a nat 20, pulls him up on top of the cage with him to save his life, using a hero coin to go out of turn. And this is the second time now that he has saved my Halfling, whose name is Slim, has saved his life. And Slim now is taking this so to heart. He actually has a counter. So on the back of his character sheet, it says, number of, Burr saved my life. And then he's got little check boxes and he checks them off. Yeah, it never ends. It never ends. And so what was really just a small kind of, expositional kind of battle became another one of these like massive social glue moments that as a dungeon master, you dream of. So now we got, that's about it. And then they return to the dwarves. So they know they have several options of places to go in the world, which is what I'm about to talk about. But instead, they decide to return to the dwarves because they really respect the dwarves. They do not want to get in bad graces with the dwarves. So they go back to the Stormkiller mine and they tell the dwarves, your prisoner, it was an illusion. He's actually he was a skeleton. He's tricked you. He was probably never in prison. He's probably out there at large somewhere. And they're like, oh my God, thank you for telling us that. You guys are so great. So they stay with the dwarves for a few more days and hang out. They all have such a feast that they get a permanent +1 con. The dwarves kind of help them out with a couple small item upgrades. And then my characters finally need to face the real question here, which is like, what are you doing? What are you guys about? You're no longer just working for coin because you don't have a paying job right now, but you have a lot of opportunities out in the world. You have a series of dwarves here who loves you. There's this dwarf back in Bramswald who kind of really likes him. And there's Terrence back in Newport, who is also a tavern keeper who kind of likes the heroes. So they have homes to go to, but they kind of need to ask themselves, what are we doing? What is our purpose? And this is a great moment because this is where the dungeon master gets to sit back, right? What are you guys about? What are you doing? Okay, so that is the conclusion of our session, but they did decide, but I'm leading on you on a tangled path here. So they eventually decide to go north and basically strike to the heart of the matter and try to find the island of Coot. Okay, they're going to go basically investigate what this is because maybe there is like a great deal of wealth in these gems. Okay, so that's their decision. But the interesting thing here, and then I'll tell you about the very end of the session, which is the kind of the wrap it up moment. The interesting thing here is, as a dungeon master, if you were out there watching this stream, if I were you, the number one thing I would be wondering is, Hankerin, how the hell did you propose possible directions to them? Because if you just say to a group of players, what are you going to do? What are you all about? What's your purpose in life? It's not enough. There needs to be more intellectual food to chew on for an idea of what to do. It's not just Skyrim where I can just run in a direction and there's going to be some weird looking people to kill. That's just not enough. They need something. And remember, I'm trying to keep a little bit of the Blackmore flavor. I'm trying to stay somewhat true to Dave Arneson's vision, right? We're doing traditional D&D. We're trying to reach back to what it may have been like for that specific group. So what did I do? It's a technique that I would love to share with you guys because I think you could find it handy. And what I did is, remember when they come down and they meet this prisoner for the first time? My prisoner is a real jerk. He's a high elf, a Thonian, and he looks down on the players and he has a long string of insults for these players that reveal 4 key facts about the world. So my 4 key facts about the world are the Skandahar, who are like Vikings, are coming in these long boats from the far, far north because the pack ice is currently broken. And they're coming down, and they're like a lot of insults toward the elf in my group about how, over the years, they've never been able to stop the Skandahar. They've been wiped out every time. So why would this year be different? It's just like, oh, dang, that's a deep cut, bro. Then the next one is a mention of how frogmen are coming much further north than they should be or ever have. And my characters have already had a super deadly encounter with frogmen. They absolutely hate frogmen, and they know that the frogmen are coming too far north. And so apparently the swamps down south of Blackmoor is normally where they're completely isolated, but they seem to be drawn by something coming north, and this is a problem. And my elf kind of packages this sort of insult against them that they're probably part of that, that they're barely more than frogmen themselves. The next one is that up near Jackport, which is sort of the town on the way to Castle Blackmoor, basically to the sort of the heart of Blackmoor, that it's a dead town, that something terrible has happened there. And he basically taunts the players to go up there and throw their lives away like so many other adventurers trying to stop this plague of the dead at Jackport. And then the final insult is that he sees there's a halfling in the group, and he basically says, what more do you know besides the quality of carrots? And then he remembers, oh, yes, I forgot. The famines have all but wiped your people out on the hack, and there's barely any riders anymore. Like the days of halflings have ended. So just knowing the insults and knowing the 4 clues and the 4 storylines that I'm proposing to my players, just prepping for 2 weeks, making sure I had an easy mental memory command of these 4 hooks, I don't really need to look at my notes much. So if you're curious, here is this is all of my session 5 notes right there. It's one spread of pages. So I lay out these insults. At first, the players are just like, I hate this guy, but then they realize that these are that I'm dropping little Easter eggs and little treats and possible, adventure hooks. So remember, they went back to the dwarves to hang out. When they do that, they all sit and they talk about these possibilities. The feasting ends with the dwarves, and they need to decide their purpose. Coming back now to the end of the session, where I said, what are you guys about? And then I just went completely meta. I just freaking laid it out. Who cares, right? I just want to help them have fun. So I said, the 4 things that you guys heard from Reese. Reese is this evil elf who they're going to see more of in the future. He's a real nasty bugger. The 4 things they heard from him are duh, and duh, right? And so it's like the 4 things are, the elves can't stop the Skandahar. They're coming. We're going to get raided by Vikings. The next one is the frogmen are coming too far north. You guys are barely more than frogmen yourselves. So there's no chance you're going to help stopping them. Then the next one is there's a plague of the dead up in Jackport. Adventurers are dying in droves trying to be the heroes who stop it. You should go throw your lives away. And then the 4th one, the halflings are all but decimated. No one can help them. So I just openly saying, hey, you guys, here's the 4 adventure hooks I'm offering you. So what are you about? Like what appeals to you? And then I also have sort of correlations between these 4 possible hooks and players who would find them the most interesting. Obviously, my elf wants to stop the Skandahar. My halfling wants to help the halflings. My wizard wants to stop the frogman because he saw these little sea monkeys inside these gems. And my fighter wants to basically free the land of the blight of evil by going to the town of the dead. So I think this is an interesting technique. I'm using an NPC's insults to introduce adventure hooks. But then also at session end, just doing a wide open meta level 4th wall recap of those opportunities and just openly telling the players, hey, you guys, like I kind of broke it down to hooks that would match the 4 of you so that you guys could feel like who's gotten MVP more than others and who wants to take the reins and take the thread and so on and so forth. Just open it up. Like forget the restriction against meta. It's just like, let's just have fun with it. So we're also kind of, it's the end of the night. It's 11:30. We've been playing for 5 hours. We've had, a rack of Miller High Life, a couple meatball sandwiches, a couple cigarettes, you know what I mean? Like we're out at this picnic table. It's getting a little cold. And they have a lengthy discussion about what these different leads could mean. The thing they're definitely the most interested in is the Gems of Koot, and the most direct path to go up to that area is through Jackport, the city of the dead, and it takes them near the Skandahar invasion. and maybe not directly there, but it takes them in that direction. So there's a little bit of a two birds with one stone feeling by heading north. So they finally make their decision. They decide we are pursuers of riches, but also we're going to investigate, what's frightening the world, and let's head north. So they head north, and the final scene of our night is that they approach Jackport, which in my world is basically Barovia from Curse of Strahd. And so they go into this mist. You look back and the road isn't there anymore where the mist is, and you get a feeling like you're kind of cut off from the world. And then I actually found a little random adventure hook generator online, and the first thing it gave me is skeletons are disassembling a stone bridge and slowly walking across a little road and building a tower at night, really slowly. And I just love that scene. So I introduced that scene. They see that scene, and then end of session. So that was session 5. So will you keep the other lines moving from the one they choose? Oh, not really. I mean, maybe a little bit, frogs will become a problem. The Vikings get ever closer, and so on. The halflings become ever more desperate. But I don't think I need to be complex about it. I don't really have the time or the energy to track an entire living world that isn't being played. Okay. If you can't, just keep on practicing, man. It's just all about practice. Get a couple good practices and just practice to draw. Okay, so first of all, that is my campaign recap. That's where we are after session 5. Everyone is level 2 now. We've got one guy in plate mail who also has the gauntlets of ogre power, so he's got a really good melee attack. And everyone's up into the 6, 8, 9 hit point range now. So we're past that super delicate stage where you can really die in one attack quite easily. And they're getting more now into the meat and potatoes stage. So made it past that intro step. Now that they're at level 2, they have more familiarity with the game. They're getting a lot, quicker with how to respond to make rolls and stuff like that. So we definitely have a potential. Now, I know, Guy, I could not agree more. But so now I'm set up for a great rhythm moment. Now, last stream I talked about using rhythm to introduce parts of the game. We haven't really done a true dungeon crawl yet. And so I've just given them 5 hours. Well, given is a very self-inflational word. Look at me giving things out. No. We just did a 5-hour RP session, basically. I mean, we had a very small amount of combat in that, but they had a lot of details they wanted to work out, and they had a great time doing it. But in exchange for that 5-hour role play session, it's time to drop them into an action water slide now. So I'm going to pull them in. The entrance crumbles behind them. They're trapped in my dungeon. They have to find a way out. The skeletal army is closing in. I've got them on the run, and we're going to play that kind of game. So that, to me, is the perfect switch of variety from the long RP session. So that's what's going to be coming up next, is the sort of the Town of the Dead, which is going to be somewhat inspired by Strahd, but less so by Strahd and more so by Barovia itself. As far as that nice idea, like Silent Hill. It's exactly like Silent Hill, really, even more so like that than Barovia. Barovia has this kind of sadness to it that I never thought was terribly fun. It was a little bit dreary, whereas Silent Hill, I think, is a little more horror and a little more exciting. So that's where we're heading. And that's what it's going to be like next session. So cue the band. The Legendary Roots crew will be playing the interlude here. I wish. Actually, it's just going to be me drinking a beer. Delicious. So tasty. So tasty. All right. Welcome to the second half of the show. Hi, I'm Hanker Fernale here. We're going to talk about some deeper thinking now. And this one is a little bit less about technique. And it's more about where to put thought resources, and specifically where not to put them. And that is an ironic starting point for this topic, because this topic is a little bit about things you don't want to put your think time into. Now, that's a very convoluted intro. Not very good. I'm no orator, sir, but you just laid some spaghetti on that ass. Oh, wait, this show isn't for kids. That was fucking bullshit. All right. Anyway, so Deep Think tonight is really about a thing that is a waste of time. And I think it's useful to talk about as a cognitive tool because you can see yourself doing it. I see myself doing it. We all see ourselves doing it. Yo, Park, stop that. Thank you. You know where that goes. Straight to the food bank. Thanks, brother. Appreciate that. You're already a huge, huge factor in keeping this community rolling. So thanks, brother. As to you. So what is this? What am I getting at? Stop with the cryptic intros, Hankerin, and let's get to it. Okay, Deep Think tonight is about a series of behaviors that can be summarized as a term that some of you may know called edge casing. Edge casing is basically the analysis of outliers. And it's hard to get less abstract than that because that's what edge casing is. It's outliers to a statistical norm. And the thinking about edge cases. So if you imagine, like, here's all the normal stuff that usually happens, is like my head. And then you have a little dot up here and a little dot up here and a little dot down here. Those would be edge cases. They're not all the cases in here, all the dots that make my head up. They're like this little dot. See that one right there? That's an edge case. So we're going to talk about edge casing, okay? And this is a somewhat complex topic, but it's becoming a thing, so much so that it's like I need to address it. And I never quite had the words to lock it down before. So I don't like to be critical of things if I don't have a constructive, useful way to break down my critique. And this kind of critique of edge casing as a behavior, it finally gives me my terminology. Okay, so what is this? The short answer of what edge casing really is, it's the doom of creative thinking, and it's the doom of enthusiastic thinking. It's a lot like an extension of exception bias, which we've talked about here on the channel a few times, which is that our brains are intrinsically wired to be more interested in exceptions than in the rule. Because as surviving animals, we need to pay attention to strange exceptions. If we just wake up each day and have a sandwich, it doesn't attract a lot of our brain power. But if we wake up one day and there's no sandwich and there's like a big weird piece of fruit, we put a lot more thinking into that exception, even though 99% of the time there's going to be a sandwich there. You see, this is exception bias, and this is about edge casing. So to me, edge casing, and now let's get back into the hobby. When you're talking about edge casing in D&D, in the context of tabletop role play, this is the doom of creative thinking. And to me, I think it's getting worse and worse and worse. And it's not good for a lot of people. It's kind of like, everyone swapping out their second meal each day for a Snickers bar. There's nothing wrong with a Snickers bar. But if you're just eating too many, it's not good. We all know that. Okay, so this is my first point on edge casing. Don't freaking do it. If you find yourself as a dungeon master, which is almost always the context I'm talking to all of you on this channel, if you find yourself putting work into something that may or may not occur, something you don't have any anecdotal evidence for, something that's completely hypothetical, that's out on the rim of possibility, you're doing edge casing, and just stop yourself right there. Colin, hey, thanks. Wow. Really appreciate it. Here's to you, man. So, and Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master has a lot of this stuff too. This is, if you find yourself thinking about the little thing out here, the little possible outlier, the maybe, if weird circumstances come together and then this happens, oh boy, I need to be ready for that. Just stop doing it. Okay, that's rule number one. Don't do edge casing. We are not making AAA video game software here where we need to accommodate edge cases. We don't need to scotch tape up every little nook and cranny at the edge of Grand Theft Auto Los Angeles to make sure that you can't fall out of the world. We're not doing that. So just don't do it. Secondly, I think that edge casing is used in our hobby as freaking clickbait, straight up clickbait. So you'll see thumbnails on videos or articles with titles that mention outlandish, very rare, or even hypothetical possibilities in our game of like bizarre combinations of powers that quote unquote break the game, or this weird druid who soloed this black dragon because it turns out that if you use freaking wood shaper and you have this particular little thing. Fuck all that. All right. The shit never happens. So why it occupies so much thought, it's a waste of brain power. It's what we used to call a brain drain in the creative industry. So it's not that it's a wrong thing to do or it's morally bad or something like that. It just eats our time and our brain power. And I think it's used as clickbait. And you guys all know exactly what I'm talking about. We all know a zillion examples of this, of clickbaity titles to things that are like extreme rare circumstances that are fascinatingly horrible. So I'm going to have to say, fuck that. Just no, it's not worth your time or your brain power. This brings me to my next point about edge casing, which is that edge cases in themselves are almost always what's called a straw man argument. And this is a nice term to use if you're out there getting involved in intellectual conversation with other people. I hope you're doing that because it's a great way to spend your time. Straw man arguments are basically flimsy arguments you don't really believe in yourself that you set up to just quickly knock down. That they're so flimsy, you sort of make yourself look tough by slamming it down. It's a fake argument that has so little anecdotal evidence that it's really meaningless. And the only reason you prop it up is just to bat it down. That's a straw man argument. It's a little bit of a nuanced difference on being the devil's advocate. Nowadays, after 2020, if someone says they're being the devil's advocate, I'm fucking done. I'm not listening to it. We have had enough devil's advocate bullshit on this planet to last a lifetime in the last couple of years. I have had enough of it. We're not talking about devil's advocate shit. Tell me something because you believe in it, not because you're setting up some fake argument to be contrary or to make your day interesting because you're negative or some shit. I don't want to fucking hear it. And yeah, we all click on it, dude. It like the clickbait of exceptions and edge cases and weird hypotheticals, it works. It appeals to the lizard part of our brain, which is taught to look at the weird colored lizard more than all the normal colored lizards. That weird colored lizard's actually probably like sick or something. All these other nice green lizards are our friends. They all have meals prepared. They're wearing tiny little lizard vests, which is super cute. We should be focused on those little vest wearing lizards, not this crazy yellow one over here who also has like pink eyeballs and cyan fingernails. Actually, I'm getting more and more I'm doing it myself. See, I'm edge casing right now. All right. The next one I want to hit is sort of bringing it home now on not putting our time into edge casing. And I think that a lot of times these edge case videos, here's a classic one. You don't want to be railroading your players. How not to railroad your players, right? We don't suck at this. Like, we're good at our hobby. We're doing our hobby for fun. We're not all so sucky that we need to take one of the worst examples of sort of odd, not fitting behavior in our hobby and focus on it. Like as if a bunch of us need help. It's kind of like saying how to not be an asshole. I don't need a video of how to not be an asshole, even though you probably feel it in your lizard brain right now that you would click that video title. How to not be an asshole. Yeah, well, when your players show up and they want to play, don't poop on their paper plate with their hot dog on it. Because, if that were to happen, I'll tell you, it's going to be a bad session. It's just like, what the fuck? When is that going to freaking happen? I don't need to be told not to be an asshole. I like my friends. I like hanging out with my friends. I'm not going to railroad my friends. It's so bizarre that we're fixated in a lot of videos and articles about fringe case hobby behavior that barely ever happens. This is edge casing, and I'm weary of it. I'm standing up against it, by golly. 99% of RPG sessions are homies getting together, hanging out, and working their way through what the game is in an organic and fun way. That's it. Now, that may not be the most fascinating analysis of what we're doing. Maybe the edge cases are really interesting. That weird-looking lizard is interesting. And it's hard for me to deny that it's interesting. But I see it as starting to eat up the edges, literally, of the hobby. It's becoming a focus. I don't think the era of the adventure path ever happened, JP. I don't think it's real. I would argue that this whole myth about people taking all these huge complex blocks of content that they pay money for and magically and precisely delivering them to their group just as they're written because that's how good they are is just a myth. There's only one group I know of in all my years of doing this who does that, and it's the Order of the Amber Die, and they pride themselves on it because they know that no one does it. Modules and huge things like adventure paths, giant blocks of published content that almost seem to not even acknowledge that the player exists to control where things are going, are to continue to satisfy the appetite both of the consumer and the creator in the RPG industry. Let's all face it, we've all read this stuff and we don't play it as it's written. It's fun to read and it's cool. But I don't think people are out there with this adventure path in front of their face telling the players in some bizarre social agreement I can't even frickin' fathom that they're going to this village over here and they're going to confront the Sawblade Killer because that's what we're doing, guys. And everybody's like, well, no, but actually we wanted to go start a salt mine. Nope. That's not what we're doing. Now, this is a funny little D&D cartoon to talk about, but I refuse to acknowledge that this is somehow like what's going on. I just don't. I think it's an edge case. All right. Yeah, this kind of stuff, I guess to wrap up, it's almost like these clickbaity type articles and videos assume that we're doing bad by default and that we need to be steered away from these oddball behaviors instead of just assuming that most of us are pretty good at this and kind of do it we kind of cruise and we kind of, yeah, things look good on paper and then we kind of move over here and we kind of adapt it and that's just what we do. That's the reality of this stuff. Not like how to not be an asshole 101. I don't need that article. Okay. Anyway, I have a little phrase that I always put in my head about my videos, and I hope that I come off this way for you guys, which is the wrong punch will not be taught. If this was a kung fu class, we will not be focusing on how not to punch. We will be focusing on how to punch. We will not be focusing on all the millions of ways that you can not punch. Like, we will not be focusing on this motion and then saying, oh man, aren't I smart how I showed you that that's not punching. This to me is the oddity and the creative waste of edge casing. My final case that I want to bring up is going to get a little bit real. As a matter of fact, it's all too real, unfortunately. And this is the supreme example of this kind of behavior that is not isolated to our hobby and that is reaching far more unfortunate proportions. And that is some segments of the world, of the United States in particular, that I'm familiar with, part of what triggered me to think about things in this way, about how some people are suddenly concerned that transgender folks are going to somehow fuck up the balance in boys and girls sports. And when pinned down about how many times this has actually occurred, they have absolutely no anecdotal evidence for it. But by golly, they're shaking in their boots that it's going to be terrible. So we need to make a bunch of laws so this doesn't happen and all this crap. And they have no real evidence of this. They're the ones who need to watch the How to Not Be an Asshole video because they're being assholes. All right? Let it happen. We're human beings. If this case does come up, this extremely rare hypothetical case, I think we can work through it on a case-by-case basis, bitches. So freaking ease up, love your fellow humans, and don't be all transphobic like this. Coming up with this super extreme hypothetical case so that you can ramrod your weird transphobia into law. You know, screw you, man. Get out of here with that shit. That is a classic example of edge casing being a waste of time and a negative force in our lives. Now, that one is way more real, and there's probably some people who are going to hit that head on. But let's do that when we're going. We don't need to preemptively lock out an edge case. And that's what I want to say with our hobby. We don't need to preemptively fight against railroading. We don't need to preemptively fight against super bizarre spell or ability combinations that allow for crazy power pops, right? We're going to love each other meat and potatoes style day by day, which is the reality of our lives, by the way. YouTube has gotten a little bit odd. There's an extremity sort of bias. So you know how the thumbnails get weirder and weirder. Like people are like in their thumbnails, it'll be like, I got new pants in the mail, and they'll be like, with the pants. Like, what is that all about? Anyways, it's like this sort of extremity factor that is not like that. Like in real life, you don't make that face when you get a new pair of pants. Well, I mean, if they're fucking epic pants, I guess you might flip the fuck out. But I think you guys get my point. As usual, I don't really have like this master orator way to drive my point home. So what I do is I just kind of walk up the path for a while, and when I feel pretty satisfied, I see something else and I wander off into the woods. So I really think that edge casing is something that might be distracting us a little bit, especially like new folks coming in who are like, what's all this D&D stuff? I know that new players are a thing, obviously. I mean, I'm a person, so I know basic things. But until this group, I hadn't had a brand new player who never played D&D before for years, many, 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 many years. So I'm seeing firsthand what this person sort of experiences of discovering D&D. And I can tell you, YouTube is not helping. It's over presenting exceptions, creating worry where there doesn't need to be any, telling this person what the right punch isn't. So that's where I'm at on edge casing. I wanted to talk about it. And when I saw some of this other stuff in the news, obviously that pissed me off, because I really believe in everyone being equal and equal rights and consideration for all human beings. And so to think that someone's going to preemptively work against someone else for some super extreme edge case, not even so much extreme, but quite rare and honestly hypothetical, it really got me in the gut. And then I noticed recently a couple of things popping up about railroading and some other stuff. And I don't want to be like that. So I told myself, let's talk about edge casing in an open way, so that I'm reminding myself, don't ever like lock down the weird stuff. Let's talk about the normal stuff. Yeah. That feels pretty good. Let's talk about the normal stuff. Let's talk about like what the meat and potatoes of the game are. And that was another great conversation I had with my players. Just to wrap this up, we had a bit of a situation in our fourth session where the players have just sort of learned or realized that they can greatly skew things by coming up with a creative turn, right? A really creative turn. Let's take as an example the fastball special, classic maneuver from the old X-Men comics, where Colossus grabs Wolverine and throws him, and Wolverine gets his claws out and he's flying through the air. They called it a fastball special, right? This is two players working together to create a drastically more powerful attack, and it's very creative. You're really hoping for some high rolls and stuff like this. This is an edge case, right? This is an oddball turn. But we had a bit of a thing going on in session 4 where every turn was getting gadgety like this, getting a little bit overthought. And so I introduced my players to the notion that meat and potatoes can be great too. Like, great players don't always do the craziest thing. Sometimes they just have their attack roll ready. They have their damage dice ready. They're waiting for their turn, and they say, I'm going to fire another arrow. Whoop. That's all they say. It doesn't mean that they're phoning in their turn. It's just mean that they're expediting. They're just doing the work of being the character. They're chipping away at the bad guys, and they're moving on to the next turn. So are we really going to have a YouTube video about having your attack bonus and your damage die in your hand and ready to go when it's your turn, and not really role-playing and just saying, I fire another arrow? Probably not. Nobody really wants to watch a video about that. But that is the guts of what we do. And you guys all know that when players are slick like that, like real quick and minimalistic, but clearly engaged in the game, but getting a turn done real quick, it's great. You just bought yourself like 3 minutes of time, 5 minutes of time. And yeah, you could call it efficiency too. And there could even be role play in there that's just like stick around, and then you throw your knife and stick the guy to the wall. It's extremely expedited. It happens in a matter of 30 seconds. We move to the next turn. And that's great. Every turn doesn't need to be the exception. Matter of fact, when it is, just like YouTube or just like our lives in the media we consume, if everything we consume is based on exceptions and looking at exceptions, we get a very strange view of the world. And to really bring this point home, I truly believe that anyone not just wanting to help each other out and get along in this world right now is an exception. And if you see media or anything that tells you otherwise, it's trying to skew your view. I talk to people all over the planet every week, and it doesn't matter where they're from, how old they are, or they're unified by our hobby, and they have great goodwill and senses of humor. And I really believe that is the meat and potatoes of who we are as a people, not the edge case of like, well, watch out for Timmy, he likes to cut people up with a chainsaw. And then you're like, man, I wonder how many other people in my neighborhood have chainsaws. No, Timmy is an edge case. Timmy. See, there I go again. The edge cases are fascinating, aren't they? But they can't let us get a skewed view of things that everyone out there wants to cut us up with a chainsaw, because that's just a bad way to live. When are you going to go outside? Nailed it. Okay, guys, that's it. Let's do the Q&A session. Here's my notes for the stream. Whoop. And then you can see my map, which is getting started on the undead disassembling the bridge to build a tower portion of the adventure. I'm done with those notes. Let's put them away. Let's do that good old Q&A. 165 you crazy knuckleheads tuning into the stream tonight. A quick plug. I've got more growth on my Patreon page in the past month than I ever have in a single month before. It's absolutely amazing. A lot of people showing up and doing the doom scroll that Runehammer Patreon has become. There's a lot of stuff. It's like if you sign up for 2-Minute Tabletop, it's going to take you a week to download that stuff. And now my page has gotten a little bit like that. There's all kinds of discoveries to make. So head on over and throw $1 to your Witcher. That's me. Jump on the Discord server. You get the Runehammer Virtual Tabletop, all the other stuff. So there's my plug. And then you know where to find me everywhere else. Drive Through RPG and on the Instagram. Like, get over there and follow me on that old Instagram. And that's where I put up my sort of weekly art output and other little odds and ends, pictures of my sessions and stuff like that. So holler at your boy. Don't be shy. Hit me up on them socials. Get on that gram and let's get to know each other. All right. If you put the word question in front of your question in all caps, that'll help me spot you, as this tends to get going pretty fast when there's 150 of you. I haven't seen Neverland quite yet. Yeah, exactly. Moose Barge. Yeah, exactly. Just encounters stitched together in a way that you'll see in time. I think that's another big myth, is these sort of insanely overplanned campaigns and world building that like really comes together in this grand reveal. And so I think it's a little bit of like a cool myth, but isn't necessarily what's going on a lot out there in the hobby. Have you heard anything about Electric Bastion Land or Into the Odd? Nope. I've heard about them, but I haven't really looked into them. There's so many things to read. It just takes time. Favorite MMO? Probably some of the stuff in either in Onyxia or Valistraza. So between Onyxia and Valistraza and World of Warcraft, especially in the vanilla era, I think there was some absolutely brilliant monster design as far as forcing player cooperation and timing. And I honestly don't think they tremendously improved on that over time. Garrosh was a cool one later on, but really used a lot of the same mechanics, but with far less consequences. So yeah, Onyxia especially, I think, was really one of the most discreetly divided, phased battles that required certain tactics or complete wipes. It was absolutely fantastic learning Onyxia in the early days. What kind of drawing practice would you recommend? Hey, here you are. Glad you stuck around 5269 for the follow-up. So if you like, take a look at some of my drawing how-to videos. I know there's a lot of drawing how-to stuff out there on YouTube. I take a little bit of a different approach because I don't really draw in a traditional way. I don't use construction lines and stuff like that. But pick one exercise that gives you a good feeling and do that one the most. Being happy about drawing is the number one step. If you want to get into it a little bit more one-on-one with me, just hit me up personally and let's get into it. I've actually done like sometimes day-long like drawing clinics with people just for fun, because I'm a huge fan of getting better at drawing, and having a little bit of an instructor really can help. I've been drawing for 35 years now, and I have my moments with it. So I've had a couple of good ones pop out recently, so that feels good. So just hit me up personally and let's keep your journey going, and just keep going. Keep going. Find something you're a fan of and try to draw it. You know, I'm into Cable. I freaking love Cable. If it were me, I'd start drawing Cable. It's just that simple, and just keep hammering until you can get a cool looking Cable. How to keep pace during a session when players are deciding. I let them hem and haw mostly. I mean, I'll say, you know, if it's slowing down like the fun, I will say, hey, you're running out of time. Like you need to take action, or your character will be locked in thought for your turn. But generally, I let them hem and haw a lot. That's a big part of the fun of the game. How well has deep role play worked? It's worked absolutely wonderful. Yeah, I think getting rid of gadgets in the game does put some more weight on role play, but you need some gadgets too. And so I'm introducing some of my own. We're going a little bit off the path with the spell list. So we're inventing a couple spells. You know, a couple gadgets are always fun. But I think our RP is really based in how good of friends your group are. And if they're good friends, the RP is going to be wonderful every time. My WoW character my main one was called Rusty Tom. Back on the vanilla server on release day, with the guild Adventure Inc. And the shard was Calistraza, I think. Yeah, Kale. Yeah, so I played vanilla. I was in the world first Osirian boss fight. Anyway, I was back in the days of Arc when they did the world first for Encourage and stuff like that. Anyway, I was around. Hey, Fazio, what's up, my man? Yeah. What the fuck? You blew right over the epic custom mini reveal. No, when they reached level 2, I gave them their miniatures. If you want to see more about the details of that, you got to get over on the gram. I'm not really showing photos, and I don't have the miniatures anymore. I gave them away. So, yeah, you'll be seeing more and more photos of the miniatures. Also, Atris Miniatures has been revealing them on his Instagram. So, the gram's where it's at these days because Facebook descended into a complete freaking loony bin. I don't know what the hell happened to Facebook. It is a freak show over there. Like, don't even go there. It's like an island of cannibals. Just go around, man. Just go around Facebook. 5e hardcore, yeah. Expend hit dice when you recover. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, hey, I'm gonna get some sleep. Okay, recover a hit die. Kind of a little more brutal, but makes it a little bit different for each person too. So it's kind of fun. Hit die are fun to use in many different ways. Me and my group, we had a DM who prepared everything. Oh God, that sounds horrible. What kind of NPCs do you think are a must in Ed? I don't know. I can't answer that. I just go with the moment. So I've had an old hag who's like, what kind of tiny eyeballs would you like to buy? And then I've had a bunch of dwarves that are just like, so he is a dwarf. Arubaka, you know, that kind of stuff. And then I've got my lady who I never really do women voices. So I just speak in my own voice, but I do like little gestures like this. Oh, because she's like a traditional kind of upper class lady. I don't think there's any type that is really quintessential. I think you just got to go with the moment. And if it feels like there's a fruit vendor there, then by golly, there's a fruit vendor. Do you reward entertaining edge cases? Yes, sometimes. Absolutely. We're going through about 1 to 2 hero tokens per game right now, hero coins per game. That's about our average. Usually 1. So they have a really high value in our game. What makes you love OSE other basic style games? Well, it gives a glimpse into really, you know, that traditional way that Arneson's group played. And I think that's fun. It's just a novelty. But I also think it cuts away a lot of the clutter that can get annoying about modern D&D, but also it presents D&D in a very like historical feeling, like with the black and white art and the simpler charts and stuff. D&D has really become cartoony these days. And I'm in my 40s. My players are in their 30s, some in their 20s. We don't want cartoony stuff. Like it just doesn't fit. So I really like that part too. But mechanics are not really a big deal. We're already slightly changing OSE in our own image, which I think all groups do. I think it just has really nice artifacts. The books are very easy to use for like rewarding items or for running monsters, for getting a couple stats on a monster, or for looking at experience values. I think it's really easy to use. I would like to think that 5e Hardcore has some of that quality, but yeah, OSE I just think is a really clean, usable, fun to have, fun to read book. That's a good springboard for a game. But right away, you're going to kind of wander off from it. That's the fun of it. No, I don't do ICRPG mechanics. Not with this group. This is a very new group to D&D, so we want to learn what D&D is all about before we get into deeper hacking like that. Can you share a favorite Ren Fair memory? I don't know. Having a guy break a long sword on my chest plate. Having a kid kind of reach up and touch my armor thinking I was like a knight. And then I looked at him and he ran off in terror. That was beautiful. Also, giving my patron knight, who's a French cavalier. She is an amazing horsewoman and warrior, and I gave her a rose one year at Ren Fair, like on one knee, because I worship her. That was amazing. Anyway, how do you get a player to take the story seriously instead of spouting random comedy improv line? Oh my gosh, that is an antisocial person. The random comedy improv stuff is disruptive. They're being antisocial to your group. That would end the group for me. I would be like, guys, I can't make the game anymore. And I would then in private tell the other 3 people, hey, you guys want to do a game? I would just ghost that person. I can't stand that kind of behavior. It's so passive aggressive. Could you explain how your session MVP works? At the end of every session, the players agree on who the MVP was, and they get a bonus 500 XP. It's that simple. It encourages players to just appreciate each other. That's all it is. It's not about doing something crazy. Just MVP is just remembering who did something awesome and everybody like cheering it on. So that the really almost always the bigger XP award for the session is MVP. And so it gives the players that cool feeling of kind of deciding who's leveling and who gets the most encouraged for their style. And I'll tell you who doesn't get MVP is this person cracking comedy improv on their turn, like breaking the sort of the moment of the game. And we're caught up. Always a great feeling when there's a very short lull in the comments. I feel like my homework's all done. I'm ready for finals. Which tiny eyeball would you like to buy? Will you write and publish something for OSE? I could be waylaid into doing that. I guess it does use like the open game license and stuff like that. That's intriguing. Again, contact me in private and one-on-one. Let's talk about what the potential for that could be. I'm all about like two heads are better than one, and 3 and 4 heads are even better than 2. So it's like I'm all about that kind of mindset. I got one little bug that got in my house today. If only I had one of those lizards, one of those Attenborough lizards. Can rewarding edge cases slow your game down? Not really. Well, I mean, telling players that they should constantly be like gadgeting their turns, yes. But I don't necessarily reward a lot of things. I think the game intrinsically rewards certain behaviors and punishes others. And overly complex or contrived turns are frequently punished by the dice themselves. What happens if I pick the tiny blue eyeball? He bought the tiny eyeballs, and then we rolled on the potion table for what they did when you eat one. And it was crazy. It came up invisibility. So these are little eyes of invisibility. So you eat a little frog eyeball and you disappear. Pretty cool. Again, that's just dice deciding what the truths of the moment are. Now that you're in person, yeah, are you consciously adapting to include virtual tables? I'm not sure what that means. Now that you're in an in-person game, are you consciously adapting to include virtual tables? I'm not sure what that means. I don't get it. Could you rephrase that for me, Ty? You threw me. Have you looked into dolmen wood? Not quite yet. I'm sure it's wonderful. Necrotic Gnome is the shit. But like I said, you guys, I don't necessarily just like read like 10 books a month. I stay very focused on like art projects and my own games. And about every 2 months, I'll try to take something new in. I just finished Tomb of Black Sand and kind of read through that like 4 times. Luke Butler. Yes, you'll be seeing quite a bit more of the project that is in store for that. Tailspire is that whole virtual. I can't deal with that. Would you be watching this? But we are. Wait. Okay. What do you mean by gadget your turn? Yeah, when you gadget your turn is when you try to really contrive some kind of super maneuver. And it's like, I'm going to jump over, do a flip, stab him in the eye. Then I'm going to use my hero coin to land in just the right spot so that I pull the lever so that he has the sword in his eye and he falls down the trapdoor, but I have time to pull the sword back out of the eye. That's a gadget. And gadgeting eats a lot of time. Or it's like someone scouring their character sheet trying to figure out a way to like make two pieces of gear interact to come up with a super turn and come up with a gadget. So yeah, it can eat a little bit of time. It can also be great. It can also be a highlight. So you just never know. What do you think about replacing events to give the impression of freedom of choice? Sometimes like holding a scene on a quantum theater aisle. I don't know what that means. That is intense. First of all, I try to never make the freedom of choice an illusion in any way. It's like they're really choosing. Sometimes it's from a finite number of choices, but I'm not sure what that means. But I don't really move things around in a way that presents some kind of illusion. What is your opinion on permanent mutations, effects, and curses? There's sort of I think they're a bit of a GM fantasy and not a player fantasy. Players don't like long-term injuries. They don't like cursed loot. They don't like having a crab hand. It's just neat to have these tables, and it's a bit of a weird like fetish for GMs, I think, but I don't think players really dig it that much. Yeah, I don't know how you'd sharpen an energy disc, but yeah, exactly. Favorite Beastie Boys album? I don't know, either Paul's Boutique or License to Ill. It's a close race there. Well, then there's In Sound from Way Out. I don't know. Never got a notification. Dang. Oh, sweet. Okay, so it's 8 o'clock. We've been hanging out for a minute. Ain't no more questions in the comments. I might as well go back out the house and work on the truck. I got to pull 14 more wheels off of that truck. I got to weld 13 more battle axes on the front of my truck. And then I'm going to weld a truck onto the axes. And then I'm going to kill a man. What's your take on random tables? Do you use them during session? Only for loot. I don't really do that whole thing. I kind of take them in a block. In some games are like very specifically designed for like using random tables during a session, but for loot, I do it a lot. Everything else, not so much. Peace out. Have a good weekend. What monster would resonant clerics, I don't know what those are, choose to defend an ancient wizard's tower? I don't know, like a phase Hulk or something, or like some kind of fallen angel, something phasic. Vancian magic versus freeform. If I understand the question, I'd have to go Vancian. Freeform can be hard for players to get excited about. Thoughts on this whole evil race discussion? I definitely have evil races. Like orcs want to eat people. They want to cut them up and roast them. That's good enough for me to call evil. If there's an orc that's like a friend of humankind out there, that's a classic edge case and not worth a big argument to me. I could see how for a large corporate entity, they would want to cover these opportunities and not make accidental off-color remarks. But at a private table, I think it's quite easy to take a species of humanoids and say they're all evil, and it doesn't feel like some kind of weird, inappropriate generalization. So, just don't be a dick about it. If someone is kind of feels weird about it, then, change your tack a little bit. Yeah. Sometimes I have an event I believe the group's going to enjoy. I keep a little place where it fits. Yeah. I guess I used to practice a little bit of a no content left behind type strategy. Now I just dump it. I've dumped so many ideas that just didn't get into the path of my players, and I've actually been happier doing it. It's kind of like the conclusion thing. It's like a little bit of a expansion muscle for me. Um, kind of taking it out there a little further and not doing a lot of my old tricks. Just trying to change my repertoire for the better or for the worse. Some things I do are working, some aren't working so good. But I think just being open about what you're trying, like literally just telling your players, I'm trying this. Like when we finished the whole Lady Wallcrest dwarf thing, I told them, I was like, normally I don't do this, but I'm kind of trying and I'm feeling pretty cool about it. And they're like, yeah. See, like the idea that the dungeon master is somehow withholding all this cool knowledge and know-how and doesn't reveal it and is like waiting for everyone to guess what they're thinking and stuff. Again, I think it's a little bit of a myth. I think it's great to just hang out with your friends and tell them what it's like to be a dungeon master. They'll love to hear it. New players are seasoned. New always. Seasoned are great too. People are awesome all over the world and in all kinds of different roles in life. But Zen mind, beginner's mind, man. The beginner, if someone's never seen a kung fu movie and you go see like Five Deadly Venoms, they're gonna be freaking psyched. But if you've seen like all the Jet Li films and Ip Man and freaking Van Damme and all this stuff, and then you go watch Five Deadly Venoms, you're gonna be like, this is all right. You see what I mean? So yeah, amen to that. Horga. Horga is a mighty name. I like that. Sam Chaffin. Any thoughts on how to make drop to zero more exciting and awesome? Well, yeah, when in our group, when you drop to 0 HP, if you still have 0, the next time it's your turn, you're dead for good. That's how we do it. I don't know if that's more exciting, but that's how we do it. That's it. There's no death saves, no stabilization, no shenanigans. Yeah. It's awesome seeing magic and sparkle in the eyes of new players. Hell yeah. Jorga. Oh, that's even more badass. Good Lord. Here comes Jorga Hoy. He's going to kick your ass. Expectations. DM hold the world there in a cup and drip feeds the party. Creepy. Jorga Hoy will kick your ass. Do not fuck around with Jorga. He's 7'2", 340 pounds. Adam Chisholm, you just added minis. Do you think you'll ever use a grid with this group? No, but I'm totally going to bring miniatures and terrain bits into the group. Now, I did have a notion to show you guys my kit. This is my kit right here. This is everything that I take to the table, basically, besides books and a roll box. This is all of my terrain, dice, everything right in here. So I'm going to keep this secret, though. I think this will make a nice set of Instagram posts, or we'll talk about it in the coming week, because it's really been working. At first, I was just feeling like a lazy bum, but I'm actually really starting to love it now. Jorga is going to be my next PC. Well, if you make a character named Jorga, make sure that he kicks your ass. Poor Jorga. I'm just like locked in on this guy. I don't know, but he's got a cool user icon. He's got a name of like a barbarian king. And this is my kind of person. What is your favorite ICRPG setting or supplement? Ooh. It's probably just the meat and potato stuff. It's Alfheim. I know Blood and Snow is really cool. Really like it, but yeah, Warp Shell has a ton of possibilities, but it's just, man, solid root freaking bedrock fantasy D&D is just so damn badass and great and infinite, and everyone can imagine into it. Like everyone can visualize it. It's part of our collective mindset. Even if you get into the like different, like global perspectives on fantasy, it doesn't always have to be European. People can imagine those Far Eastern fantasy times, or those like Aboriginal fantasy times, or even like sort of Proto-African fantasy times, or Proto-Mayan fantasy times. People can imagine that shit, and it makes it just bedrock. So good. So I'd have to say Alfheim is still my favorite. 10-minute dungeon exploration turns. Don't do any of that stuff. Bag them. No, don't do any of that. It's way too contrived and limiting. It's weird. Just plain weird. Just talk your way through it. Just be natural. Like if they spend some time looking around the dungeon, great. Maybe something happens, maybe something doesn't. Just go with it. Best pizza in Philly. Oh, don't fuck with me, man. It's got to be Shaka Maxon with Pizza Brain in close second. And then Badia coming in third. But don't mess with me on that one. That's going to start a fight or something. Pizza's pretty serious. And then you got Circles and Squares coming in fourth, but I'm going to stick with that top three. Jorga. Where is your pants? Where are your pants, Jorga? Jorga needs no pants. Whoa, what language is that? I can't pronounce that. That's amazing. Ugande muito. I love it. I love it when we get into this kind of shit. Okay, here we are. Hey, Hankerin, you told me to hit you up for some drawing tips. Yeah. Email me at hankerin.fernail@gmail.com. Look me up on Instagram. I'm hankerin.fernail there too. I'm on Twitter a little bit, but that Twitter's also become a loony bin. I'm telling you, Twitter and Facebook, for some reason, just attracted all these insane, extreme, hateful freaks. And they all just screaming on those networks. So they kind of just like, I got it. I'll just go on Twitter now and again to mention like how the new Captain America has a dumb looking headpiece, but that's really all the extent of the conversation there. What's an effective way to get a group of D&D old hats to unlock their beginner's mind? Get it, Crippy D. What's up, my man? By the way, Crippy D, yo, my man. You got to get out in the open, bro. Just like right out in the open, be like, yo, I know you guys have been playing D&D for fucking 20 years. But right now, that's all scratched. All right. I want y'all to, and just use the term, say, we're all going to go Zen mind, beginner's mind. Okay. We're going to get rid of all the experience. We're going to wash it away. And we're going to begin anew, my brothers and sisters. You know what I mean? Just openly say it. Just proclaim your mission and your homies will jump in with you. Do you put index cards over stealth rolls? No, I don't hide anything. I don't have the time or energy for that. How has your method changed from 100% VTT and back to IRL? Oh man, VTT is so much Photoshop and so much screen staring. I still love hanging out with my online friends because that's what it really is about. Let's face it. But yeah, the screen staring and the oddity of being different houses, it's just so not that Portuguese. Oh my God, Portuguese is so difficult. So yeah, VTT is very tough, and I will be sort of leaning slowly away from VTT a little bit. Of course, I say that, but I'm in a game every week with my homies because I love hanging out with them. So Portuguese is very challenging language for a person like me. I find it very, very challenging. It's not like some of the like French and Spanish and some of the others where it kind of sounds like zany English. It's just Portuguese, like whoa. Props out to my man Marcouche out in Portugal. What's up? Oh, my man Jose Late. What up? Props out to Portugal. How you get through a multi-room space like a castle? Yep, fast. You don't. It takes time. You don't do it fast. It's not going to happen. If you rush it, it's just like, how do you get through a house party fast? You show up to a house party, like, when are we going to get to midnight so I can get out of here? You're not going to have a good time. Let it go. If they're going fast, great. If they're not, great. Frog Boy never existed. Frog Boy was a weird lark that everyone hooked onto, and I got caught up in the excitement for a brief moment, but no. I mean, I've got this frog here. I've got my samurai katana frog, and I'm getting the other one, the peaceful frog, here pretty soon on the other side. I love frogs in Japanese paintings. If you ever want to go down a really fun Google wormhole, frogs in Japanese paintings, absolutely fantastic. Naui Nauveo. Oh man, I'm butchering that language. Brandon Yusko, what's up, y'all? You went frog for a week. Dude, Frog Boy is still part of yeah, I got a little bit of Frog Boy in me. I got a little bit of Frog Boy. He is a lizard, remember. He's not a frog. He's a lizard who wants to be a frog. And he's going to earn the respect of his froggy friends by jumping. Let's keep it straight. What is Frog Boy? If you don't know, you're better off. Beer, wine, or vodka? Beer. All right. That's it. When I'm resting like that, We must be about done. There's a lot to do tonight. Oh my God. Okay, thank you, Annalie. By the way, hi. Thank you for the reminder. Every week I try to plug one or two things that I really, really love. So go check out Atris Miniatures. Go check out my man Mono Makes. I hope he's going to be making dice for people because I freaking love the dice he made for me. And I have like 2,000 dice. I have way too many dice, probably like every single one of you. And I love the set he made for me. Maybe I just lucked out or something. Maybe he put a little bit extra love in there, but they're great. So check out Mono Makes. Let's see what else. Oh, and The Barbarian and the Troll from Annalie mentioning that. It's a new show on Nickelodeon. It's Muppets doing a fantasy world, but as a person who loves like fantasy tropes and fantasy storytelling and how it can be twisted and fun and yet still consistent with itself, God dang, that show is like the best show freaking ever. Annalie, yeah, feeling a lot better. Thank you. So let's see. COVID came raining down like February 6th or so, February 8th. So, yeah, almost 3 months now. February, March, yeah, 3 months to recover. So yeah, you can see how it could really kill some people. I mean, this stuff is freaking serious. So go get your vaccine, get those nanobots put in there, and then we'll all be communicating on the neural net, and you can catch up with everyone else. You don't get the vaccine, you don't get to hang out on the cybernet. So don't be a punk. And thank you, Annalie. Good to see you around. I'm a Pfizer guy. Well, we don't need to argue about Coors versus Budweiser, right? We can all get along. Do you ever pull inspiration from different folklore? Not really. Not really. I see how that would be cool and like super legit and very authentic, but I'm not like that kind of a person. I stay very much inside the hobby, and when I read sort of or absorb things outside that hobby space, it's generally like the Gundam world or the heavy metal world or like Cable or He-Man. it's like my partner got me a like a pair of like shorts or something, I don't know, a while back with all these pockets. I was just like, what the fuck is with all these pockets? She's like, it's for your He-Mans. And I was like, oh my God, you know me. Could you learn to love me? You've talked about tables not defining the whole old school movement. Do you yourself roll on tables? No, I don't. I don't cherry pick the options either. I kind of read tables in a recreational fashion, and then I play in the moment from my notes. That's all I do. I only open the book to roll random loot or answer like equipment, spell, or monster questions. Yep. I got a mangina. He-Man overalls. I do have a pair of Carhartt overalls. They're really hefty for this time of year. These Japanese style ones are a lot more comfy when the weather's warmer and you just need a place to put like pens and Gundam arms and stuff like that. I did just finish Barbatos. So if you guys want to see my Barbatos build, you can look on Instagram. Yeah, they're cool for inspiration. That's how I feel. Like Mike Evans' book, Hubris, is an amazing book. It's got all these huge, cool tables of all this crazy dark shit. But I wouldn't bring that giant table to a session and try to like live play it. That's just a little crazy. I wouldn't do that. But reading through them is like, ooh, that's interesting. That's a tasty little nugget. Could you learn to love me? Make an assessment. Almost done with this amazing sip of sunshine right here. So when I finish it off, we're going to finish this stream off. I got a bunch of shit to do tonight. Viking Death Squad has had its final massive acceleration. I finished the monster section, which was a 3-month project to finish the monster section by itself. Oh my God. So thank you to all my patrons being so patient with Viking Death Squad. But yeah, I'm running the final test group now. So that's my homies from the Runehammer Discord server. We are running probably like a 4-session jam. We're going to do a little bit of a monster, maybe 6 sessions. We're going to do a Monster of the Week thing to run down a lot of the foibles, get the feel for it. And then it's the home stretch on Viking Death Squad. So I'm working on that like every night. And then in other news, Master Edition is well underway. It's 2/3 of the way done now. So kind of a cool development there. It should be done sometime in summer at this pace. So kind of exciting. It's 2 really, really long-term releases finally coming out this year. I don't really do things that take a long time. That's not my style. I have attention surplus syndrome. Like I like things to get done fast. So thanks to the support of my patrons, I've been able to put a lot more work into things and make a lot more like complete and refined work. And I'm excited to reveal it to the world. And yes, the children of Azathoth are falling from the iron coffins to save humanity. How do you handle money economy in OSE? Simplify it or as written? I do it as written, money equals XP, but I hand wave exact values. I mean, we'll look at the gear table to see how much stuff costs, but we keep it pretty loose. I mean, my players give away as much money as they earn just to buy beers and stuff. So it would be fun to have a Frahday chat about consequences of player choices. Well, I don't really think that's a topic with a ton of greenery because it's just what's believable. What is the outcome? And that's what happens. I don't know if there's really a theory behind consequences. I don't know. That's interesting. Is there more to that? Let me know. What kind of an a-hole would say, damn it, Hank, VDS is taking too long? Oh, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. Yeah, Viking Death Squad is going to be fucking killer. The last playtest that we did, which was run by Alex Alvarez, was so much more fun than I thought it was going to be. And that was the fourth build of the game. And that was just like, it was just such a hoot. Because it's such a vast departure from anything D20 related that it's a hoot. It's just been a very, very tough struggle to get it where it's really playable and smooth and intuitive. So we're finally about to that point. Dang, the lighting in here is so pleasant. Woo! Oh, it's pleasant. Damn, I'm freaking out. Oh, well, plus I just had a nice big heavy gravity beer. But yeah, it's Friday. This is a work night for me. So my nights off are like in the beginning of the week. So like toward the weekend time is when I buckle down. That's such bullshit. I basically just get to do a bunch of cool stuff and try to do a good job at it. And that's my job. Air quotes. Air quotes are totally out of style, but in Troll and Barbarian or Barbarian and Troll, it's really fun to see a Muppet do air quotes because they kind of just do this. They're like mitten quotes, straight up mitten quotes. Skippy wants to know about my acoustics. What? I don't know anything about what's something wrong with my acoustics? You don't like my acoustics? Do I have your permission to use the Mighty Mighty Chutney as an NPC? Oh, please do. And please send me the results or the artwork involved. The Mighty Mighty Chutney is currently asleep. He had a little bit of a wacky day. It was really windy in Philly today. And when there's wind and you're that small, he scurries a lot. He does a lot of scurrying. He moves his bed all over the house. He doesn't know what to do. The wind's blowing. He's like, I'm going to get blowed away. My voice is melty. Melty, you say? My voice is melty? Melty. My voice is melty. I don't know if my voice is melty. I can't. I mean, it's just a microphone. Like the EQs are in the middle, the levels in the middle. I don't know what else to tell you. I sound like Solid Snake. That's impossible. Here, let's check it. I can get an acoustic check right now. Okay, I'm listening. I'm listening to my microphone. Yeah, hey there, I'm listening to my microphone. What do you mean? It just sounds like I'm in a room. I'm like a dude in a room. You don't like dudes in rooms? I can try something else. I got this thing over here. Okay. Yeah, I got to say, like the whole building out of the studio with the whole, I can't. But yeah, when I'm right up here, this is probably when it sounds perfect. What kind of eye would you like to buy? Okay, criminy. Spend an hour and a half. Dudes in rooms. Jorga, you're my new hero. A host. Okay, I'm going to get out of here. Thank you, Anna Lee. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This was another fun one. reporting into you guys what I'm doing, and some thoughts on just like this kind of weird fixation on things that don't happen that often in our hobby as if they're like big problems we need to think about. Let's not do that. Let's just relax into playing with the people we play with and focus on the real deal, which is just like neato ideas for encounters and reading cool things and absorbing cool media that keeps our creative gears turning. And really, maybe even most importantly, is just the simple energy to enjoy and celebrate your friends. That really is the essence of what this hobby is. And sometimes, yeah, you're feeling like a little tired. You know, the world's getting a little crazy these days, but it does feel like it's getting a little better than it used to be before. So let's enjoy it. Keep your energy up. Always tell your friends you love them. Be nice. Get that melty voice kicking. Keep it real. Don't steal. You're always going to get a deal. Yo, it's Hanker and Frahday. I'm out of here, you guys. Have a great weekend, and I will see you next Friday. No, I won't. I will see you next Friday, but not the following one. So catch me next Friday, and we'll do another stream, and then I'm going to be gone for a little while. I'm going to go get a little R&R, and then I'll be back after that. So anyways, have a great weekend, you guys. Strength, honor, and beer. See you on that old internet. I'm out of here. Watch it. Bridge life. Dr. Picker Boss, man.